Welcome back to Light the Fuse. Not the only Mission Impossible podcast, but hopefully the funniest.
Yeah, or the scariest.
Ooh, I like that.
It's spooky?
It is.
No, it's not at all.
It's not spooky, but
it's fun.
It's fun. It's educational, hopefully.
Yes.
This is Drew Taylor, once again joined by Charles Hood.
Hello.
So earlier today, that's right, today, we got the long-awaited Academy Award nominations, and we were pretty excited. So I'm going to let Charles go ahead and reveal the big news.
Mission Impossible Fallout was nominated for the following categories. Let me check my notes. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Ugh.
Well, I think the less we say about this, the better. Let's just move on. Yeah.
So today we're taking a break from talking to really interesting people that are associated with the movies to break down Mission Impossible 2.
Yes, we are. Give you a full making of.
Yeah, I think this is the episode everybody was really
clamoring
waiting for. Yeah.
I think so. I think, no, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happened behind the scenes, and we dug up some exclusive stuff that I've never heard before.
Right.
That I'm very excited to talk about, and we'll get there soon.
Yeah. So, we're just going to run down the making of it, much like our making of Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible, and
we'll do the later entries as well.
Yeah.
Just going right in order. So.
Yeah.
Should we just jump right in?
Jump right in. Let's do it.
Okay, all right. On August 23rd, 1996, in Variety, William Goldman has signed on to write the screenplay for Mission Impossible 2. Goldman very recently passed away. He wrote some of the greatest movies you'll ever see. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, All the President's Men, Marathon Man, The Princess Bride, Misery, and many, many more.
Including Dreamcatcher.
Oh, Drew's a big fan of Dreamcatcher.
Yeah.
Back to Variety. They say that William Goldman will be paid more than $1 million for this job. Also, director Brian De Palma will have first crack at the sequel, though no deals have been made yet. They are hoping for a summer 1998 release, and as we know, it came out in summer of 2000. So this is very early on. So, I mean, this is De Palma potentially doing the sequel. That's kind of interesting.
Also, the Goldman script I had never heard about before, and we are working on reading the other drafts of the script, which we'll talk about later. But I've never seen anything about a Goldman draft.
Yeah, there are some early drafts that are on file at a certain library out here in LA that we're trying to get access to, and I'm hoping that we can do that soon. So when we do that, I think there will be enough. We can get to an early we'll get to Oliver Stone, but there's a draft I think on file that I think if we can get to read will justify a whole episode about it.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that later. Yeah. So on to the next.
Yeah. I mean, 3 days after this report, there was a report in the Hollywood Reporter that said that Tom Cruise had no deal to return. Basically, that was probably some kind of negotiation tactic, is my guess.
You think so?
Yeah, they usually are.
But at this point, remember, Cruise had never been
in a sequel.
Yeah.
Never.
He'd never done a sequel. So,
no.
And he hasn't really done sequels. He did Reacher 2.
And he's about to do Top Gun.
He's about to do Top Gun 2.
Right.
But it took him a long time.
Yes.
At this point, he'd never done it.
Yeah. He did not come back for another interview with a vampire or anything like that. So, right. According to Tom's spokesperson, they said Tom won't make any decision until he has read it. So he has taken a wait-and-see approach. I mean, you're right. This is very much in line with his approach to any sequel.
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe it was just negotiation, like you said.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Cruise ultimately does decide to sign up again. We assume Goldman's draft must have gotten him excited on some level. And foregoing his usual $20 to $25 million fee, Cruise negotiated a deal that will net him just under 30% of the worldwide box office gross. Probably the most lucrative deal in movie history. This is all according to the Sunday Times in London.
So the worldwide gross on Mission Impossible 2 was $546 million.
So, all right, 30% would be $163 million.
Wow.
More than $163 million. That's how much he made, according to this article, I guess.
If true, that is incredible.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So on February 24th, 1997, Variety reports that Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner are trying to get Oliver Stone to write and direct the next movie. Supposedly, Cruise had wanted to work with Stone again since Born on the 4th of July, and that Stone and Cruise have been talking about making a movie about Alexander the Great. And McQuarrie, this is McQuarrie's project?
No, it's just interesting because also McQuarrie
had a dream project
that was Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
So Cruise is going to do it with Oliver Stone at one point.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted to make this Alexander the Great movie.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver Stone ended up making it with...
That's right, with Colin Farrell. I forgot about that.
But there was also the Baz Luhrmann project, which was formerly a Martin Scorsese project, with Leonardo DiCaprio.
And that was the one that was McQuarrie's.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, so McQuarrie on another podcast said that it was a dream project for him, and he finally decided to let it go because there was a producer who had a relationship with both Scorsese and DiCaprio and said, they'll make this movie. How much money do you want? And McQuarrie basically asked for the biggest deal ever. And on this podcast that I heard, I can't remember which one, I've listened to so many, he said that it was the most lucrative deal. And at the time of that podcast, he said it was still the most.
That he'd ever done.
That I think anybody. I think it broke records.
Wow.
Because he was like, if DiCaprio and Scorsese want this movie, I want the highest.
Wow.
This is what McQuarrie said in that podcast.
Well, wow.
All right, so 2 months later in Variety, we find out that they've got a concept they're happy with, and Oliver Stone protege David Marconi is writing the script under Stone's supervision. Marconi would go on to write Enemy of the State for Tony Scott, and a couple years ago he wrote The Foreigner for Martin Campbell. I'm a big fan of The Foreigner. I thought it was a very good movie. Oliver Stone talked to the New York Times in September of 1997, saying that the movie will be, quote, a vehicle to say something about the state of corporate culture and technology and global politics in the 21st century. It's a big commercial picture, and Tom Cruise is a movie star, and in a sense that gives me some camouflage. I can't always be out there leading with my chin, end quote. Then in the Harvard Crimson on October 3rd, 1997, Stone had this to say. It would be a combination of action, suspense, and philosophy for the 21st century, a very cutting-edge film. We've talked about this before on our Unmade Missions episode, but worth stating again.
So a couple of weeks later, Variety reports that Michael Tolkien, who wrote Robert Altman's The Player, has been hired to rewrite the Mission Impossible 2 script under the direction of Oliver Stone. Apparently, this is rewriting the Marconi script, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like it.
And then somewhere along the way back there, at the beginning of 1998, Stone backs out completely. From what we understand, it was due to scheduling conflicts resulting from Tom Cruise's prolonged stint on Eyes Wide Shut, which ended up being 14 months or something. He was on that? Yeah. Yeah.
And that leads us to our big bombshell, because we'd never heard this anywhere before. On February 6th, 1998, Screen International reports that Wong Kar-Wai is tipped to replace Oliver Stone as director of Mission Impossible 2. Wong, in London last week for a panel discussion at the ICA, is believed to have held talks with Tom Cruise, who is now in the final weeks of shooting Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Wong Kar-Wai, of course, directed Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, and Happy Together. And if he had made MI2, he probably never would have made what is, by most accounts, his best film, In the Mood for Love. There's so many things to discuss here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a Wong Kar-Wai Mission Impossible?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy. Like, would Tony Leung have been in the movie? Because, Tony Leung's in all of his movies.
Yeah.
Did some of these ideas, that if he had any ideas for MI2, did they end up in that BMW short? Those BMW shorts that we love so much from the early 2000s with Clive Owen? Wong Kar-Wai did one of those, and the plot is kind of a love triangle that seems almost reminiscent of MI2.
Interesting.
I don't know. That short is called The Follow, if you want to look it up.
It's great.
All those BMW shorts are great. Big-time directors did them. Wong Kar-Wai also went on to do some breathtaking kung fu sequences in The Grandmaster. So I think he's handled some action before. And I think Fallen Angels is the one about assassins?
Yes.
So I think he could have done something really special.
Yeah, it would have been great, but who knows?
Yeah.
On February 26, 1998, that's when Variety first said that Cruise and Wagner are in talks with John Woo. Woo is trying to get something called King's Ransom off the ground at Fox, which is a movie he'd been trying to make forever, but the script needs work, so he's pivoted to Mission instead.
In John Woo's commentary track on the Blu-ray, he says he was concerned about competing with Brian De Palma's style from the first film, but Cruise told him he wanted something new for MI2. His goal was to have each quote-unquote episode be a different style from a different director. Cruise loved Face Off and all of Woo's Hong Kong films. That put Woo at ease about making the sequel. His plan for this movie was he wanted it to feel European, romantic, and elegant.
Woo also mentions in the commentary track that he and Cruise were previously going to do a movie called The Devil's Soldier, but instead did this. And The Devil's Soldier was a nonfiction book by Caleb Carr, who wrote The Alienist, called The Devil's Soldier, The American Soldier of Fortune Who Became a God in China. The project was probably set up at Paramount, so they just shifted the deal over to Mission Impossible 2. And it sounds like a really cool movie. Here's an excerpt of the Los Angeles Times review of the book. Imagine an American version of Lawrence of Arabia at large in 19th century China, add the devil-may-care exploits of Indiana Jones and the high moral purpose of Robin Hood, and you'll have a rough idea of what the adventurer Frederick Townsend Ward was really like.
Wow.
That sounds great.
That could have been a really cool movie.
Yeah.
By the end of 1998, we've got Tandy Newton, Doug Ray Scott, Ving Rhames, and John Woo all on board for MI2. Tandy Newton was actually Nicole Kidman's idea.
Oh, wow.
Nicole Kidman suggested Tandy before there was a script, and then the part was actually written for her. John Woo says Tandy's character is inspired by Audrey Hepburn's role in How to Steal a Million. She was originally going to be a spy, but Woo changed it so she'd be a thief instead. Woo really loved Tandy and said she had a very Audrey Hepburn or Ingrid Bergman quality.
Oh, wow. Another little bit of casting on January 26, 1999. The Hollywood Reporter said that Ian McKellen, who obviously would go on to be Gandalf in Lord of the Rings and Magneto and X-Men, and we'll get back to X-Men in a minute, is in talks to play a villain in Mission Impossible 2. But this was actually not a villainous role. It was our favorite character in the franchise, Mission Commander Swanbeck.
Yes.
Yeah.
There should be. I hope there are fan sites out there for Mission Commander Swanbeck.
Yeah. I'm Swanbecking hard right now.
So that takes us to January of 1999, where Ronald D. Moore and his writing partner Brandon Braga wrote another draft of MI2. So Braga and Moore wrote on several Star Trek shows, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. They wrote the screenplays for a couple Star Trek movies like First Contact. The two of them ended up with a story credit on MI2. So I think we're going to try to track down this script as well. I think we'll be able to through that library, so hopefully that'll happen. That leads us to February 18th, 1999. The Hollywood Reporter says the budget is $80 million. However, at the time of the film's release, the Wall Street Journal reports the budget as $94 million. So, looks like they went a little over, but not too extravagant.
No, and if you're wondering how it's that low, I think it's pretty low, especially by today's standards.
Yes.
Is the fact that a week later in Variety, they announced that Fox Studios Australia will be the home to the Mission Impossible 2 shoot. It will be a 20-week shoot in Sydney starting later that February. So in addition to using 4 of Fox's sound stages, they will use the city of Sydney and local rural locations in the state of New South Wales. And this was really the first movie to use Sydney actually in the movie as opposed to dressing it up as a different, usually anonymous city like in Babe, Pig in the City, and The Matrix.
Yeah.
They made a lot of movies at that studio. And I think,
at that time in Australia,
Yeah.
they always talked about shooting in Australia, but then it never was Australia.
No, or it was like the Star Wars prequels. They shot all 3
Right.
of those in
Yeah.
Australia. Yeah.
But it's never actually... MI2 was the first one to be like, yep, this is Sydney.
Right.
So, March 10th, 1999, Variety reports, just days after crews flew to Sydney to begin shooting, members of the crew have been sent home, and the March 20th start date has been delayed for an unspecified number of weeks. Speculation has centered on budget issues and script problems. A spokeswoman for New South Wales State Premier Bob Carr says, "From what we understand, the film's script is being reworked and the production side has therefore gotten ahead of the script."
Why didn't you do that quote in an Australian accent? That's what I want to know.
I would have butchered the Australian accent. I wish you had done that.
Well, hopefully there'll be more Australianness. So as of April 13th, 1999, Steve Zahn is listed in the cast. As our screenwriters, David Marconi, William Goldman, and Michael Tolkien all have credits. But during this month of the production being shut down, it seems like a lot of things changed. Steve Zahn was replaced by what felt like a contractually obligated Australian actor, John Polson, as team member Billy Bard. Also of note, the production bump, plus the extended production schedule, meant that Do Ray Scott was forced to drop out of X-Men, where he was signed on to play Wolverine. A lot of what-ifs kind of rippled out of this.
Because Wolverine's still going. I mean, it made Hugh Jackman's career.
Yeah.
To be Wolverine. Can you imagine Doug Ray Scott in Logan?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
I can't remember the last Doug Ray Scott movie
I know.
I saw.
You have to wonder, feel bad for him. Like, I feel like I don't know. It's just I can't even imagine what goes through his head. It's crazy. I mean, it's amazing the way things work out.
Yeah.
Like,
he got what was coming to him. That's what I think.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Why? What did he do? What's wrong? You think karma is a...
Yeah.
I think Doug Ray's a good guy.
Probably.
And so I feel
We'd love to have him on the show. That's what I should say. We'd love
I don't think he's going to want to come on now. All right. So now we get to April 19th, 1999. The Hollywood Reporter says, after numerous delays, Mission Impossible 2 finally started principal photography today in Sydney. The shoot is supposed to be 88 days. That will certainly not be the case. They filmed in the spring and summer of 99 in Australia, Utah, and Los Angeles. Industry observers were taken aback when crew members were sent home a month ago, but Paramount president John Goldwyn said the extra month of pre-production allowed the project to resolve several problems, including creative issues. Goldwyn admits there were issues about the script, but Robert Towne's screenplay was definitively completed 2 weeks ago. So Towne's on board now, fixing things.
And does he have final screenplay credit?
I think Robert Towne is the credited writer.
Okay.
I think,
So did he write it in those months that they were off?
yeah, I think maybe in that 1 month that they shut down, maybe Robert Towne had to come in, or maybe he was in before that trying to write it, and he just said we need more time, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just interesting because so many of the later movies, obviously Rogue Nation, shut down to rework the finale.
Yeah.
And Cruise's ankle trouble shut down Fallout. So
Yeah.
this has been kind of a running theme in these movies.
And Ghost Protocol sounds like they had some
yeah.
issues in the middle of that production. So I mean, just all of them.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a
but
Mission Impossible tradition.
it all works out. It all works out. So at this point, Brendan Gleeson and Anthony Hopkins have joined the cast. The scheduled change caused Ian McKellen to drop out playing Mission Commander Swanbeck, so producer Paula Wagner told John Woo that Anthony Hopkins was interested in the part. Now, on the DVD commentary track, Woo says that he was so nervous that he didn't sleep for a couple nights before shooting with the legendary actor. Woo was surprised to find out that Hopkins was a big action movie fan and was very aware of his work and filming style, and then he cooled off, he chilled.
Yeah.
He was happy.
I love that Anthony Hopkins is a big action movie fan, and
Yeah.
he was a big John Woo fan.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
He's done some Bruckheimer movies, I guess, and,
Yeah.
the Red
Right.
movies. So,
He did the latest Transformers.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So then on May 19th, which is a month into production, The Hollywood Reporter says Jeffrey Kimball, who shot Top Gun and True Romance, has signed on to shoot Mission Impossible 2 following the departure of Andrew Lesnie, who would go on to shoot the Lord of the Rings movies. A spokeswoman cited stylistic differences for the reason it didn't work out with Lesnie. She went on to say, quote, "It was all very amicable and no reflection whatsoever on Andrew. John has a certain way of shooting and a certain speed, and Andrew had his way, and happily they agreed to part company," end quote. So that was the DP switch that happened a month into MI2, which we've talked about before on the show.
Yeah.
So speaking of the cinematography, Woo has said that he wanted warmer colors for this movie because the first movie's lighting is much bluer. In his commentary track, he talks about the way he likes to shoot scenes, which I found pretty fascinating. He likes to use multiple cameras. One camera shoots 120 frames, another 60 frames, another 30 frames, and then the main camera shoots 24 frames. This gives him all these different slow motion options, 24 frames being the normal speed and 120 frames super slow motion, plus all the others in between. Then Woo cuts the scene to music and uses different speeds based on the pace of the music. He says he loves the energy of slow motion. That's just... it's
interesting.
Really interesting to see
Yeah.
that he shoots with all these different cameras shooting at different speeds and then puts it all together in post and figures out when does it feel like it should be in slow-mo. I mean, there's a lot of slow-mo in all of John Woo's movies, so you can see.
It's more like he's shooting like a racetrack or, a sporting event or something with all
Yeah.
these different cameras and the different speeds. But yeah,
I would assume it's not for dialogue scenes. I assume it's more for just the action.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because you can't capture audio on any of the slower...
Right.
Yeah.
I also just want to take a second to plug. I was watching a little bit of this movie recently when I was watching the commentary, and I wanted to plug. There's some really nice rainbow lighting on Cruise's face in the biosite shootout. I don't know. I thought it was a beautiful image, and the movie has a lot of great shots. There's another one at the horse track where the camera kind of bends around this pillar and zooms in on the horses down on the track. I think there's a lot of cool shots in this movie.
Well, thank you, Charles, for that. Can we discuss the department heads for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, so Kevin Yeager did the makeup this time, who is replacing the great Rob Bottin. And he had worked with Woo on Face Off and had done a few of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels and designed the Chucky doll from the original Child's Play.
Oh, yeah.
And around the same time, he had conceived of the story and provided the makeup effects for Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, which was also a delayed Paramount movie and ended up opening in the fall of 1999. So around the same time.
I didn't realize Sleepy Hollow was delayed.
Oh, it was delayed. Yeah, I think it was supposed to be a summer movie, and it ended up being...
Oh.
But it's a fall movie.
Yeah, I know. That makes sense. The movie's very fall.
Yeah.
There's also production designer Thomas E. Sanders, who did Braveheart, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is beautiful, Saving Private Ryan, plus the underrated Maverick. I will go to bat for that movie.
I like that movie a lot, yeah.
And Apocalypto. I think Maverick was also William Goldman.
Yep.
Wasn't it? Something cool that production designer Thomas E. Sanders created for the movie is Sean Ambrose's house on the water in Sydney. It wasn't a real house. It was just built of polyestyrene. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And demolished after shooting. That's just a weird structure they just put there on the water. It's a fake house.
That's crazy. They should have saved it and
Yeah.
used it as a landmark, and we could have gone and recorded episodes in
Yeah.
that house. Yeah. Or in that, behind the house, behind the facade. So we'll get into individual shooting sequences now. Here's the climbing scene, the opening scene. Cruise hung from a 2,000-foot cliff in Moab, Utah. There was no protection on the ground, and Cruise did the stunt himself, though he was strapped into a harness, which was removed during post-production. The big jump he made covered about 15 feet, while Cruise reportedly injured his shoulder while doing it.
Wow. Wu says, quote, "We wanted to show the new Ethan Hunt in nature, full of life, more real, more human." 7 cameras shot the mountain climbing stunt, including one that filmed from a helicopter hovering dangerously close to the rock face and Cruise himself. Wu says, quote, "Tom made me sweat for 4 days. There was a simple safety cable attached to the top of the mountain in case he falls. I felt very nervous," end quote. Cruise trained with Ron Koch, a world-class climber who happens to look exactly like Cruise. The two men trained indoors for a few days, then spent more time choreographing Cruise's holds on the mountain itself. Stunt coordinator Brian Schmers, I think that's how you pronounce it, who did Face Off and Men in Black, said, "I knew he wanted to do most of it, but thought he'd only do some of it. As it turned out, Cruise did the whole thing. Except, there's one bit. I've heard there's a little, competing stories about this, because I've heard he did all of it, but this one article I found from, it was in Premiere from July 2000. They said Hunt jumps to a small ledge, slips, and he ends up hanging. Wu says he didn't want to kill Cruise. When hang time came, Cruise slid part of the way, but Schmers refused to let him go further, and Koch took over. Schmers says, "Hanging off the cliff was hard on him, really straining." Schmers went on to say, "Tom was good. He was having fun. I kept trying to drill in the danger. These are stunts. You're not supposed to be having fun." But he never got nervous about one thing. That is what made me the most nervous.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting. I don't know.
Well, that was kind of the beginning, like we've talked about, of his stunt.
Yes.
Him putting himself out there.
And insisting on doing it.
Yeah, in crazy ways. Here's a great quote from Cruise about that climbing scene. He said, "I've never had a problem with heights. As a kid, anytime I get to the edge, I want to jump off. I don't know what it is. It's subconscious. I don't want to kill myself. I want to fly." And we just heard from
I want to fly.
A principal Mission Impossible collaborator.
Yes.
Who said that they were in the back of a plane and the door of the plane opened up and Cruise just walked right to the edge, just fearlessly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to reveal who that was?
We can.
We haven't said yet, but we have a big interview coming up with a certain Oscar winner.
Yeah. Do we want to keep teasing it, or do we say?
I don't know. He's a hero of mine. It's amazing. Do you want to say who it was?
Yeah, we can say who it is.
All right. Well, we have an interview coming up with Robert Elswit.
Yeah.
Who was the cinematographer for Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation and many other movies, and won an Oscar for There Will Be Blood. So get ready for that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild chat.
Yeah.
We got a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, get ready. So John Woo says that the sexy love at first sight moment with the flamenco dancers in MI2 was inspired by a West Side Story.
Interesting.
Yeah, just a little nugget for you.
I like that moment too.
Yeah, it's fun.
So the flirtatious car chase with Cruise and Thandie that follows them, along that great winding road was originally going to be the two flirting in a room. But Wu thought the car chase was a more exciting way to introduce their love affair. He also wanted the cars to move as if they were making love. Now, have you ever have you ever moved like that while making love?
Like two cars spinning on a cliff?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I make love.
Yeah. Okay, great. Newton, who's British, was nervous about driving on the left side of the car, so a stunt driver hid in the passenger seat, ready to take the wheel and pedals if things got hairy. Now, to pull off the finale of the car chase when they're actually spinning, this is really interesting to me. A track and a giant turntable were built to move the cars in sync with one another.
Pretty cool.
So it's almost like a Disney ride or something, where there's a track laid and they're on some kind of mechanism.
Yeah.
But it is very fluid, that motion. It makes sense.
It's a pretty beautifully shot
I love
sequence.
that scene. Yeah, and
a lot of slow motion, of course.
Yeah, and Hans Zimmer score really gives it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the scene in which Hunt drops down inside Biosite from a helicopter was filmed on a soundstage in front of a green screen. The stunt was among the film's most dangerous, as it had Cruise dropping 80 feet toward the camera while attached to a rig that stopped him just inches above the camera. Woo says he was afraid of this scene because he thought Cruise would smash his face into the lens. There's some fun behind-the-scenes footage of this on the Blu-ray you can check out if you have the MI2 Blu-ray.
Which I hope you do. In the third act, when Cruise rides along through a line of fire on his motorcycle, he was actually riding through fire. When he appears to be skiing on the road, he's doing that too. During that portion of the scene, his motorcycle was being towed behind a truck, and he was strapped onto a harness as he skied on the soles of his shoes at 50 miles an hour.
That's when his feet are skidding on the ground.
And it looks like that line of fire is probably one of those, lines with gas lines with the flames coming up. But that's still
like you'd
horrifying.
See at a stunt show or something. Yeah, but that's still fire.
It's horrifying.
The climax of the movie came to be known by everyone in the production as the motorcycle joust. For Woo, the movie Ivanhoe was an influence on this sequence. There's a famous jousting scene in that movie with horses, and Woo felt like the motorcycles could be like horses, which is pretty fun. The stunt required complex rigging that lifted both the motorcycles and actors off the ground. Cruise and Dougray Scott were attached to cables that pulled them upward when they released the motorcycles, as well as separate cables that pulled them backward so they wouldn't crash into each other at deadly speeds.
Yeah, we've seen a picture of this rig, which unfortunately we can't share, but it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
What this was. I mean, it was almost like a rig you would think you would see in like a Peter Pan production, but it's so much more sophisticated and and the knife in the eye moment, which I love to death.
Yes, me too.
Was not part of the scene until the day of shooting. Woo wanted the knife to get close to Cruise's face, but not close enough to endanger him. But Cruise, of course, insisted it get as close as possible. A rig was built that allowed a cable to be attached to the knife so that it could be thrust towards Cruise's eye and stop just a quarter of an inch away. And it was indeed a real knife. And what that means basically is that the actor could push hard on that knife and it would
always stay.
I mean, I would never, if I was Dougray Scott, I would be like, no, I'm not doing it. It's crazy.
To be the man who stabbed a knife through Cruise's skull. That would be a tough career ender.
Yeah. Worse than losing out Wolverine.
This is kind of a fun little nugget of info, but Cruise says Woo actually studied the way that he walks and moves and designed the action around that so that it's tailored to Cruise's movements. And Woo says that Cruise told him he wanted to be like Bruce Lee in the movie. It's kind of fun.
Explains all the kicking.
Yes,
sure.
A lot of kicking.
So then we get to July 22nd, 1999. The LA Times reports that the release date is being pushed back from December 17th to the Wednesday before Memorial Day next year in order to give John Woo more time for post-production. The film has been in production for 100 days, so it was originally scheduled for 88, 100 days, and is not expected to wrap before the end of next month. Oh, that's they're said to be a week behind schedule at that point, but obviously they fall behind. But again, this is the constantly shifting release date is also a hallmark of the Mission Impossible franchise.
Yes,
both being bumped up and being delayed several months.
Yeah. The following is all according to the Sunday Times in London from June 18th, 2000. It's pretty crazy. So in the end, the production went for 180 days.
Woo!
Dougray Scott got in a motorbike accident that nearly broke his neck. He couldn't shoot again for 6 weeks. There were problems with the weather, difficulties between the American and Australian crews, problems between Woo and Cruise, who later insisted on reshoots and on being closely involved with the editing to Woo's evident chagrin. It didn't help that there was no completed shooting script. Town was making revisions all through production and admitted he was even rewriting the film for Cruise while it was being edited, just 2 weeks before it was released. The biggest problem was that Cruise and Woo had conceived the film's main action sequences long before there was a script. That proved too much for the first writers who took turns at it. William Goldman, Michael Tolkien, and Wesley Strick, who wrote Batman Returns and Scorsese's Cape Fear remake. Town was able to tackle the problem by basing much of the story on Hitchcock's Notorious. So that's a lot there. It's pretty crazy report there from the Sunday Times in London.
Yeah, I mean, and not dissimilar from other experiences, perhaps, at least in terms of writing on the go and that sort of situation.
Yes.
We don't know about the conflicts or anything else, but if there was too many conflicts, I feel like we wouldn't come back for the commentary track. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it is.
That's true. This might be a little bit of a
embellishment.
To get the drama of the story.
From what we've heard from all of these stories, Cruise is just interested in making the best movie possible, and if that conflicts with other people's ideas of what the movie is, well, I mean, it's Cruise's franchise. He's the producer, the star, and he's going to get it the way he wants it. And obviously, Mission Impossible 2 ended up being the biggest financial hit until Fallout. So
Yes, which we'll get to next week.
we will.
We'll talk about the financial success of the movie and the release and everything.
Yes.
Because I think we should probably separate this into parts.
Okay. Well, we'll be back next week to finish it up.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.